ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशम् रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवराभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम् ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। Namaste everyone. Did you have a good meditation? Very good. So, of course, we love to discuss and enjoy the Bhagavad Gita, but in my opinion, the greatest peace and bliss comes in the silence. That silence is, of course, the you may say flip side of what is expressed in the Vedas, Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gita. Right? All the words, even the words of the Vedas, all the rich psalm, they all culminate in the silence. So one should understand silence. Only the true understanding of silence leads to the true understanding of speech. So the one who understands silence is worth listening to. They call this a Shrotriya. Not just one who is versed in the Vedas. Because the Vedas point to something beyond them. That is the silence. So knowing the silence is very important. What is the state of knowing in the silence? Not just, of course, external auditory silence, but when the mind is itself silent. Right? That is obviously the proper domain of the Yoga Sutra. So today we are going to start a new chapter. Isn't that right, Pralaji?
Yes, sir. Fifth chapter.
Panchamodhyaya. And Pranav had a suggestion which we may shorten some of the recitation so that we get through more of the verses, which is, I think, unless someone has objection, seems reasonable to me. You can always, of course, give feedback to Pranav and or me, and we'll be happy to take your input and see how to make this work. Right. So Pranavji, you're going to share. I thought we will start with at least the first two verses.
Yes, sir.
Because they are somehow indicative of the beginning.
Yes, sir.
And then after 1.1, 2.3, we can switch to, per your suggestion, was it going to the last chapter's verses? Was that your idea?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Thank you so much for preparing this again online. It's very nice. So let us start. Om Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kimakurvata Sanjaya Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Klaibyam Masmagama Partha Naitatvayupapadhyate Kshudram Hridaya Daurbalyam Tyaktvottishta Parantapa.
Just a second. Sorry, sir. Yeah.
No problem. So the first two verses are important, and the mental state that it puts us in is not just Dhritarashtra saying. This Dharma Kshetra is the Kshetra of every individual's mind. This Dharma Kshetra is not somewhere out in a piece of land in a place called Kurukshetra. It is in your mind. And so when we say Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra, the feeling is every time the mind engages in these debates as to what is Dharma, what is Adharma, what should I do, is this correct? This will create some confusion. And at that point, the words of Bhagavan, if they come to mind, they're very useful, which it says, give up this unmanliness. Klaibyam masmagava. Give up all the samshaya, all the doubts. Recently I was having a discussion. What will be the state of our mind at the time of passing? Will we be reduced in old age to gibbering fools? Right? Now one can worry about that. But if you have faith in Bhagavan's words, it doesn't matter, because your identification is not with just this body and this mind. Of course, the body will decay. This is a given. It's a dharma. Nobody can deny that. How will it decay? We don't know. Some may know through their yogic practice, some may not know. Right? How will the mind be? We have seen people of great dharmic anushthan in our own households reduced to blabbering fools as they grow old, right? Cognition is gone. Recognition is gone. Is that something that is going to depress you? No, it should not. Because Bhagavan, our Jagat Guru, has said, you are not the body, you are not the mind. So if you've constantly identified yourself with that which is beyond the body and mind, the fact that the mind has become disturbed at the time of the prayana kal is not something that should concern you yourself. The mind of others is being disturbed. The lesson to take from that is, unless I practice and make the mind's habit to not identify with this body and mind, unless I practice the mind to rest in the peace, in the silence, at the prayana kal, it may suffer the same consequences. So the goal is to take the lesson. After all, we are not there yet. Right now, the mind is firm. Right now, the body is firm. So this is the time to make the effort. This is not the time to worry that I don't know what will happen at the time of passing. Of course, you don't know what will happen at the time of passing unless you have done some yogic practice, right? So the only thing that you can do absolutely is this moment, right? And at this moment, if you make the effort, then, and if you have faith, because Bhagavan has said so many times in the Bhagavad Gita, many people have come to me like this. We have living examples of people also, both in our memory and even, within our own time frame. And so that can give us strength. So there is no point in worrying about what is going to happen at the Prayana Kal and what's going to say. This is all irrelevant. The point is practice from this instant onwards. And as sure as night follows the day, success will come. Right? That dhrida nischaya, that firm conclusion must be there. It is the core of our very existence. Right? Then whatever comes, the mind can take it. It doesn't matter. Right? Now, so let us now look at Bhagavan's next Panchamodhyaya. So, now there is a long preface in this particular edition in which Bhagavan Shankaracharya has given a commentary and then many objections. Let us read just the first paragraph so that we can prepare our mind for the later one. Karman yakarma yah pashyet 4:18 ityarabhya sa yuktaha kritsna karma krit 4:19 Jnanagni dagdha karmanam Shariram kevalam karma kurvan yadricha labha santushtaha brahmarpanam brahmahavihi karmajan vidhi tan sarvam sarvam karma akhilam partha jnanam parisamapyate. That's the final. Jnanagni sarva karmani yoga samyasta karmanam ityetaihi vachanaihi sarva karmanam sannyasam avochat Bhagavan. In the utterances mentioned above, the Lord has taught the renunciation of all words. Sannyasam avochat Bhagavan. Chitvainam samshayam yogam atishtha iti anena vachanena yogam cha karma anusthana lakshanam anutishtha iti uktavan. He also teaches in 442 yoga whose characteristic is the performance of works. Tayoho ubhayoscha karma anusthana karma sannyasayoho sthiti gativan paraspara virodhat ekena sah kartum ashakyatvat kalabhedena cha anusthana vidhana abhavat arthat etayoho anyatara kartavyata praptau satyam yat prashasyataram etayoho karmanusthana karma sanyasayoho tat kartavyam na itarat ityevam manyamanah prashasya tara bhubutsya Arjuna uvacha sannyasam karmanam krishna ityadina. These two mutually contradictory courses, the performance and the renunciation of works, like rest and movement, cannot be undertaken at once by the one and same person. Ekena saha kartum ashakyatvat, the impossibility of one person instrumentally being both moving and stationary, sthiti gativat, paraspara virodhat, because of their inter-oppositional nature. Karma anusthana karma sannyasayoho, that analogy being engaged in the karma yoga and also in the state of the renunciation of works. Nor have they been prescribed for pursuit at different times. In other words, only one of the two courses may be practically pursued. Of these, that which is better must be taken up and not the other. So thinking, this is the Arjuna's thinking. And desiring to know which of the two is the better, Arjuna said, renunciation of works, etc., Krishna, etc. 5.1. That's the introductory. So the Bhagavan has, in his commentary, Jagadguru Shankaracharya is setting the stage. Why did this confusion arise in Arjuna's mind? Right? And the intelligent ones may also have this confusion, right? Which is the better course? The riddle, of course, is that when that silence is known, both courses are identical. And that is the riddle. How is it that one can be a non-doer while seeming to act? That is, of course, the riddle. Right? But Bhagavan, through bringing these seemingly oppositional thing, is triggering the person to think. This is the nature, I told you, of the Zen koans also. By giving you two oppositional phrases which seem mutually impossible to occur together, they push the mind towards that point where you transcend the duality. That is the point. Okay. So 5.1. Let us then, now these objections are pretty long, and I think we will move to 5.1. And if you have objections, definitely please raise them. I think that will be more relevant. So I will take comments from you, and then we can. So maybe even after first one, I will stop and we will ask whether you see this issue or not. So, Arjuna uvacha sanyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha shamsasi yachreya etayorekam tanme bruhi sunischitam. Sanyasam karmanam Krishna, the renunciation of works and the works again, performance. Punar yogam cha shamsasi. Shamsasi. You praise. Again, you praise the performance of works. First, you praise the renunciation. Yet Shreya, that which is better, etayoho, of these two, ekam, which one is better? That to me, bruhi, you tell me, sunishchitam, definitively. Let's be conclusive about this. Let's not have this vagueness. Definitively, conclusively, you tell me, because Arjuna has taken Bhagavan Sri Krishna as his guru. So he's saying, you tell me for sure which one it is. So now I will just open up for any comments or questions. Does this seem like a reasonable question or not? Based on what we have read so far.
So, Dr. Sankar, this verse arises from the point of view of duality, right? Dual world, this relative plane, right? Like you mentioned earlier, if it were through the Brahman point of view or that silence state, then this question not going to arise, right?
Right. Absolutely. And that's why that confusion is not there in Bhagavan's mind. But nevertheless, when the human birth is taken and when the world is perceived through the human body, right, this question can arise from time to time. It will arise. It is natural. It is not unnatural, right? It is very natural for the question to arise. And even if occasionally we have a glimpse of the truth, as it were, it can, when the mind is, as it says, right? Indriyanam hi charatam yan mano anuvidhiyate tadasya harati pragyam vayurnava ivam basi. Indriyanam hi charatam. As our mind is engaging in the objects, right? And traversing among those, as those senses are traversing, that mind which follows those senses, tad asya pragyam, its pragya, its true knowledge, right, is stolen away. Harati pragyam, vayu, just as wind takes away the boat on the ocean. We know this. This is a fact. One who has studied the mind can have no doubt about this, right? So when that pragya is shaken, again the doubt may arise. Which is correct? Which is the right one? Right? Yes.
when Sri Krishna was explaining about Swadhyay
Mhm.
to Arjun, I think at that point you explained that work is something that is done to purify the mind.
Mhm.
So I think that's when, for me, it got clarified
Mhm.
why there is no conflict between performing and also not seemingly not doing anything. Because whatever we are doing, it's just to prepare the mind.
Mhm.
It should be done with that goal.
Right, right. Indeed. Any other comments? Okay, so then if there are no, then let's see what delightful verse Bhagavan has in store for us in the next one, because he's going to clarify everything in his infinite wisdom. Sva abhiprayam achakshanah nirnayaya Sri Bhagavan uvacha. Setting forth his view definitely, the blessed Lord spoke. Sri Bhagavan uvacha sannyasa karma yogascha nishreyasa karavubhau tayostu karma sannyasat karma yogo vishishyate. Both renunciation and karma yoga promote the supreme good, but of the two, karma yoga is superior to the renunciation of works. So Bhagavan states here, both are promote the supreme good. Right now, to clarify this point, I will give you sneak preview of why he says this. Mhm. Because later you're going to encounter a verse in which he says, for whom is which path recommended? And that verse goes, Aru Rukshor Munir Yogam Karmakarana Muchyate Yoga Rudhasya Tasyaiva Shamakarana Muchyate. So Aru Ruksho, the one who is desirous of climbing the ladder of yoga. To that Muni, karma, the works, thoughts, etc., karana muchyate, is said to be the cause. To the one who has attained to that and established yoga rudha, the one who is firmly established in yoga, to that one, shama or non-performance is said to be the cause. Shama is literally tranquility of mind, is said to be the cause. So, although there are two paths, and Bhagavan here is recommending, later he will clarify why. What is the classification? What is the litmus test by which I must decide this, right? And when the doubt arises, then who is this yoga rudha? Have I achieved this yoga rudha state? If that doubt arises, the following verse he will clarify. Yada hina indriyartheshu karmasu anushajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudha tadochyate. So, yada hi na indriyarthishu, when there is no further desire for the objects of the senses, in the objects of the senses, or in works, in thoughts, works in their most subtle form taken to be thoughts. When that does not arise, that person is called a yoga rudha. So for that person, it is reasonable that just tranquility of mind is the cause of mukti. So, but now Bhagavan is saying, since many people will not pass that litmus test of yoga rudha, again Bhagavan in another place will say, there are thousands of people, of them only a few follow me, right? So again, he points out that this is not a path, the yoga rudha path is not something that state is not attained trivially. Therefore, if one applies that litmus test to oneself and asks in the quiet of your mind, have I conquered the interest in the objects of the senses? Have I conquered all my desires? Have I conquered all thoughts? Do I have no further taste in these? And if the answer is no, then one must assign oneself the aruruksho at best, right? And therefore, karma must be the means. So this is simply a litmus test that anybody can do in their own heart. There is no need for anyone to prescribe to you that you should do this, you should do that. You simply ask yourself. When you consistently answer that, yes, indeed, I have not further interest in the objects of the senses, my mind is not interested in generating new thoughts, then you have reached that state, and tranquility, shama of the mind will be the best cause. So it's a very do-it-yourself, DIY kit for success. Right.
But Shankar, I
Yes.
have a question.
Yes, please.
So any form of sadhana is also in the realm of works, right? If a person is doing Raj Yoga or any other form of sadhana, he's also doing work, right? Or is he not?
That's a good question. So yes and no. Definitely the attitude with which one does is always the cause of whether it is work or non-work. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let us say you say many people are familiar with reciting some shlokas, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So very often in many shlokas at the end there will be something called phalashruti. Have you heard of this concept?
Yes.
Phalashruti. So one person may say the shloka with the phalashruti and a hope that that shloka will give the fruit, right?
Yeah.
Another person may say it and actually not even desire the fruits of those phal from the phalashruti. You see? So, for instance, when we say the verse Brahmarpanam Brahma Hevi Brahmagno, the understanding there is that I'm not even the doer. Even if these fruits do not accrue to me through the recitation of this slok, it is immaterial. Okay? With that state of mind, the shloka said is not a work even. Right? So similarly, if the sadhana is done with some personal goal in mind, right? With a goal that I should attain some siddhi, or, you may consider that like to be a trace work, right? But nevertheless, that work is good work of the, of all. You remember he said you must know the nature of work, what is vikarmana, akarma, etc., etc. Right? So on the scales of work, that is the best work you can do. Any sadhana, any practice, and the beauty of that work is by automatically it will reduce all the other works. Okay, so in the Yoga Sutra there is a verse that says Tajjaha samskara anya samskara pratibandhi. What does this verse mean? It says, the sutra means Tajjaha, the samskars born of that samskar reduce pratibandhi, or restrains the other samskaras. Okay, and what samskar is the direct effect? This is a samadhi samskar. So a person who is pursuing Raja Yoga, those works will serve to reduce other works. That is a unique thing about sadhana, is that it is the most active approach of reducing works.
But I think I was asking about a person who is after liberation. So
Yeah.
at current state, he is not free of all desires, right?
Right.
But he wants to tame all of his senses and desires so as to, and he's seeking liberation through a lot of sadhana, maybe doing something.
Right.
So even if his desires have been reduced to a particular thing,
Right.
he always desires an experience of the divine or something, right?
Right. It is a work. It is a work, but it is a good work. It is the highest work because it serves to attenuate other works. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it is the best kind of work to do. Right? And that is why, if you know, in our tradition, that has been given such a high place. Right? That is why the moment anybody comes as a sadhu or something, we don't question, but we just respect that, very naturally, because we realize they're engaged in the highest work. Right?
Right.
Achha? So, any more comments, or should we proceed?
I have a question, Dr.
Sure.
So just to follow up. He asked the exact
Right.
question I had, and so for just to follow up. So Yeah, so the desire to get moksha, right? Desire for the realizing true nature. So the intense desire.
Yes.
So when we just intensely desire that we are in bondage, we are suffering, we are in bondage.
Right.
So with just one focused mind towards that, though, other worldly desire might be reduced or minimized, right? Or their mind may be flickering less
Right.
than
Yes.
the current states.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And it will ignite the fire that will consume all the desires, you see. So what was the other? I told you once that there is an identity you can take which will destroy all identities.
Yes, sir. In the Hinduism class, you covered. In the Hinduism class, you talked about that.
Right. So it's a peculiar identity, right? Why would you want it? It's the one thing that will destroy all identities, right? Similarly, this is the one work that will destroy all works, or the one desire that will destroy all desires. Like in that Lord of the Rings, one ring to rule them all. One desire to finish them all, right? So it's a very good desire, right? If anyone was to have prayer to have one desire, that would be a very good desire to have, right? Yeah. So very good. Shall we continue? Then thus the Lord commends Karma Yoga. So he says both renunciation and Karma Yoga promote the supreme good, but of the two, Karma Yoga is superior to the renunciation of works. Kasmat iti aha. Why? Gyeyah sa nitya sanyasi yona dveshti na kangshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. Gyeyah should be known. Sir, that one, Nitya Sannyasi, and perpetual renouncer. Yona dveshti na kangshati, he who neither shuns nor seeks. Nirdvandvo, beyond opposites, devoid of opposites. He, Mahabaho, verily, O mighty armed one, Sukham, bandhat pramuchyate, is released from bondage. Of all say such contraries, right? So easily, sukham pramuchyate, without effort. So what he is saying is that it is through the engagement that the disengagement happens, right? So this is a very difficult, actually, medicine. Because it's relatively easy to talk about philosophy in the confines of isolation, or in the 20 minutes that we have to sit in your dhyanam, etc. But what he's saying is the real battle is, can you jump into the fray, enter into the sense world, engage, and yet be unmoved, right? So undoubtedly, it is definitely, you may say, a harder challenge, right? It is one challenge to keep the mind steady in dhyanam. There's no doubt about that. That's itself a challenge. Raj Yoga is considered the realm of the warrior, right? But a greater challenge is to bring that tranquility out into the day-to-day world and preserve it in the midst of likes and dislikes, in the midst of desirable and undesirable things, right? Definitely, there is no doubt about this point. Okay. Then any this is reasonable?
Yes, sir.
Huh? Then so then there is a next point, lead in. The mutually opposed renunciation and karma yoga performed by different types of persons ought to be opposed as regard to their fruits too. Normally, these ought not to produce an identical result, namely the supreme good. The following is affirmed, negating this normal position. So he's saying the two paths don't lead to different ends, although you may think that. Although one may think that one path will lead to one end, another path will lead to another end. No, they lead to the same identical result. Sankhya Yogau Prithak Balaha Pravadanti na Panditaha Ekam api Asthitaha Samyak Ubhayor Vindate Phalam. Balaha, children, not the ones of discrimination, thoughtless. Sankhya and Yoga together in a Dvandva Samas, taken together, are thought to be different, Prithak, Pravadanti, but not the wise ones. The Pandits don't say that they are different. Ekamapi asthitaha, resorting to either one, just one of them. Samyak Ubhayoho Vindate Phalam. Either one wins the fruit of both. Samyak is properly resorting in that sense. Ubhayor Vindate Phalam. One wins the fruit of both. So this is actually a 2-for-1 deal. Right? Like we see in the departmental stores. 2-for-1 is always a good deal. Right? So you follow either one and one wins the fruit of both. So there is no antagonism in regard to their results. Okay. How can one win the fruit of both by performing either of them properly? Answer. Yat Sankhyaihi prapyate sthanam tadyogairapi gamyate ekam Sankhyam cha yogam cha ya pashyati sa pashyati. The status won by the Sankhyas is attained by the yogis also. He who perceives this as that, Sankhya and Yoga are one. That one truly sees. Only he sees who sees that Sankhya and Yoga are the same.
Shankar,
Huh.
can I ask a question? So the first was the Arjuna is trying to contrast between karma sannyasa and karma yoga.
Right.
But Loka is talking about Sankhya versus yoga. So I'm missing the connection. Like,
Yes.
What exactly when the Bhagavan here says Sankhya and then yoga?
Right. So when he is talking Sankhya, he is referring to the yoga of renunciation or the yoga of wisdom, Gyan Yoga, from which the renunciation naturally arises. Right.
So Sankhya means renunciation. Is that?
Yes, you can equate in this context Sankhya to Sannyasa Yoga or Jnana Yoga, and what he means by yoga. This is where I think somebody asked, what does yoga mean? Right? It's very confusing sometimes to navigate. In this context, what he means by yoga is karma yoga.
Okay.
Right. So remember in chapter 2, he started off by saying, Ashochan Anvashocha and describe the nature of the self, right?
Yes.
Right. So what Bhagavan is saying is, if the mind is so purified at that stage that on listening to that person's doubts are completely cleared, right? And immediately that understanding is intuitive and direct. Such a person is said to be Sankhya Yogi, right? On the other hand, the one who, through performance of works and developing the state of mind, which is Samyak Darshana, Sukha Dukkhe Same Kritva, this way, is in his current delineation, he's calling that a Karma Yogi. Okay, so then, how does the Vedic Karma Yoga lead to real yoga is the next question. Yaha tu Karma Yoga Vaidikaha sacha tad arthyat yoga sannyasa iti cha upacharyate katham tadarthyam iti uchyate. Sannyasastu mahabaho dukkhamaptu mayogatah yoga yukto munir brahma nachirena adhigacchati. Sannyasah tu, renunciation indeed, O Mahabaha, great mighty armed one, Dukkham aptum ayogata is hard to win without karma yoga. Yoga yuktaha, however, with karma yoga, munihi Brahma, the silent sage, attains Brahman na chirena adhigachati, without any delay. So, what follows when the yogi uses karma yoga as a means to attain knowledge? Yada puna ayam samyak jnana prapti upayatvena. Jnana prapti upayat. What follows when the yogi uses karma yoga as a means, upaya, to attain self-knowledge? Samyak jnana. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma, vijitatma jitendriya, sarva bhutatma bhutatma, kurvannapi na lipyate. Established in yoga, mind purified, his body and senses controlled. Vishuddhatma, Vijitatma, self identified with the self of all beings, ranging from Brahma to clumps of grass. Brahmadinam Stamba Paryantanam. What does Chimalo mean in Telugu?
Can you say that again, please?
What does Chimalo mean in Telugu?
Chimalo. Never heard of Chima. There's something called Chima means ant, but
Chima there.
Chima means ant. Yeah.
So there is a song by Tyagaraja which says Chimalo Brahmalo.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Remember that one?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
That song came to my mind when I read this, from Brahma to clumps of grass, etc.
Yeah.
Chimalo Brahmano. Yeah. So, seeing his self as the self of all living beings, Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma, Kurvan Napi, even though he may seem to do, he is not tainted by works. Right? Let me just close the window here 1 second. Seems to be a little gathering of motorcycles or something, let's say. So, established in yoga, his mind purified, self and senses controlled. So, in that sense, here Bhagavan is saying, what is the procedure to do these works, right? So, yoga yukta, vishuddhatma, vijitatma, jitendriya, sarva bhutatma, bhutatma, kurvannapi. So, with this attitude, if one performs the works, then one is not tainted through the works. I gave you a simple example. He's not tainted, though he works. That even when doing the shlok, right? If the mental attitude is that Brahmarpanam, then it is cultivating this approach even in that context. Then And since he does not in reality work, naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tatvavit pashyan shrunvan sprushan jigran anashnan agachan asva panchashvasan pralapan visrujan grihnan unmishin nimishannapi indriyani indriyartheshu vartanta iti dharayan. So what is his mental attitude? Na eva kinchit karomi, that I do not work at all, even when he manyeta tattvavid, the one who knows the truth, does not think that he is doing. Pashyan, when he sees. Shrunvan, hearing. Sprishan, touching. Jigran, smelling. Ashnan, eating. Gachan, walking. Swapan, sleeping. Shvasan, breathing. Pralapan, talking. Visrujan, evacuating. Grihnan, grasping. Unmishan, opening the eyes. Nimishan, closing the eyes. Knowing that basically these are the senses operating vis-a-vis their objects. So with that mental attitude, right? However, the non-knower of truth who practices karma yoga, brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yah lipyate na sa papena padmapatra patram ivambhasa. Brahmanyadhaya, reposing all works in Brahman. Karmani sangam tyaktva, operating without attachment, the one who does. Lipyate nasa papena, he is not touched or stained by sin. Just as Padmapatra iva ambasa, just as a lotus is not touched by water. So that image of the lotus floating on the water, untouched by it, is often used in our symbolism. Brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yah lipyate nasa papena padmapatra iva ambasa. Patram iva ambasa. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalairindriyairapi yoginah karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaye. Kayena manasa, through the body, kaya, through the mind, buddhya, through the buddhi, kevalair indriyairapi, and mere senses. The yogis, karma kurvanti, they perform work, sangam tyaktva, without attachment, atma shuddhaye, for the purification of the self. Right? And obviously here by the self is meant the mind, because the self with a capital S doesn't need any purifying. So the same thought was echoed, I believe, earlier in one of the comments. Right? Yuktaha karma phalam tyaktva shantimapnoti naishtikim ayuktaha kamakarena phale sakto nibadhyate. Yuktaha karma phalam tyaktva, giving up the fruits of works, the yogi shantimapnoti naishtikim, attains peace, the disciplined peace. Ayuktaha, the non-yoked one, non-yogi, kamakarena, on account of desire. Phale saktaha, attached to fruits, gets bound. Nibadhyate. And remember earlier already, Bhagavan has said, when Arjuna asked, Kena prayukto ayam papam charati purushaha anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. Why does man fall into ignorance? So Bhagavan said there, Kama yesha, Krodha yesha, rajoguna samudbhavah mahashano mahapapman jnaninah nityavairinam. This is the ever-present enemy or foe of the wise. And then he says, how does it appear? Dhumena avriyate analam, just as smoke envelopes the fire, right? And so on. Yatha olbena, how the fetus is enveloped in the amnion. In the same way, this karma envelops and deludes the true vision, right? So again, Bhagavan is saying that. That is the root. Then next one. Yahatu Paramartha Darshi Saha, on the other hand, the percipient of the Supreme Reality. Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyaha Yaste Sukham Vashi Navadvare Pure Dehi Naiva Kurvanna Karayan. Sarva Karmani Manasa Sanyasya Aste Sukham Vashi. Mentally renouncing all works. Self-controlled. Embodied being sits happily. Vashi, self-control. Sukham aste is happily sitting. Having given up this, mentally renounced all works. Navadvare Pure. This city of 9 gates. The city of 9 gates is which city now?
Sharir.
The body, Sharir. Yeah. Neither working, na eva kurvan, na karayan, nor causing others to work. So this is an interesting and in fact a subtle verse. So perhaps we can take a break here and stop for comments. Next verse is very profound, so I would like to not rush it. It's again one of those supreme gems in the Gita that worth reflecting on. And the last pada of this verse will be answered by the next verse.
Okay.
So this question of not doing and not causing others to work, if it raises any confusion, will be clarified in the following verse. Right? So in case the following confusion arises in the mind, Raja Janak was a Brahmagyani, right? As a Raja, he must have ordered his courtiers and ministers and army and others to do things, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Then can this apply? Na karayan? Right? This doubt can arise. Correct? Should then he not order anyone at all as a king? This should be an interesting doubt that will arise and will be clarified in the, so a little bit like mystery thriller. We can leave a little suspense in those serial shows. Otherwise, if it ends on a complete note where everybody is happy and lived happily ever after, nobody will come to watch the next episode. So a little bit of teaser unresolved. Yeah, to be resolved, to be continued. What do you say? But I'm happy to take questions. That particular path will be hard to, will be giving away the mystery. But any other clarifications? What we covered so far?
I guess the last time we talked, there was a shlok which said that Karma Yoga can at best prepare a particular person, but
Right.
to go beyond, one needs knowledge.
Mhm.
So, I mean, isn't that contradicting in some sense?
A good one, Shalom. So Yes. So the Bhagavan seems to play a trick on us in this chapter, uh, and the trick he plays is somewhat subtle. Okay, so remember he says you must do works, right? He says pronunciation of the performance of works is superior, but look at the way he says you must do the works. Huh? He gives a very specific way. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya. Right? Do you verse 7? Do you see that, Shalom?
Yeah.
Now, those are all the characteristics of whom? Sarvabhuta Atma Bhuta Atma.
But then, aren't those people yoga rude?
Chicken and egg, right? You're right. So this is definitely, yes. So it's a fair question. So my very humble, simple, practical suggestion is as follows, right? Have one daily practice, right? One sadhana. In that, sincerely, we try to practice, as I said, asana, pranayam, dhyan, right? Following these procedure of Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, preparing the mind to become qualified for the Brahma Gyan that is given in the Advaitic texts. Right? And all other works that are naturally coming to us, which we know we must do, from in the deep heart, when you look, you know there are some things you have to do. We perform those with as best an attitude as given here. Right? This, in today's world, seems the best approach. Right? Thereby not contradicting either of Bhagavan's instructions, right? Now, the moment we do this, very quickly, I will tell you from practical experience, personal experience, it is very difficult to work with 7 in mind. Okay? Let's say even the first activity we do, say we prepare breakfast, okay? Maybe for 5 minutes we can keep this attitude, but after 5 minutes, let me give an example. It may the whatever you're cooking might burn, okay, or it may get a little off. Then somebody will come and criticize and say, "Oh, why is this today? It's not like this." Then immediately the mind can slip, right? This is natural, right? Indriyanam hi charatam, right? And but slowly, one thing I will say is the more and more that daily sadhana of 20 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever you're able to do permeates, the mind does change. It becomes less inclined to jump into the fray. Okay. And slowly, like I used to compare, in my meditation, I always sometimes think this mind's desire is like a super tanker. You remember that Exxon Valdez? Turning a super tanker in the sea is not easy, right? You cannot turn it like that, right? It requires a lot of planning and preparation for this giant super tanker to change its inclination a little bit, right? But definitely with the practice, it does happen. This much I can say. And if you track your progress over the years, you will say, yes, before I started meditation, before I started the sadhana, I was one way. Now, definitely, all my colleagues, all my family members, even everyone I interact with, over time, slowly is saying, yes, there is a change. This person is more patient. This person is less inclined to, that is the way, in my opinion, very practical. While keeping in mind the highest truths, let's not forget that. But in my humble opinion, it is difficult to immediately practice any of these, right? But at the same time, it is absolutely true that a steady practice will yield results. In as short as 6 months in yoga, one can attain very tangible results. Sincere practice. Just 6 months. Pranayam, dhyan, etc. In all the texts that we have read as a satsang, always they say the first thing is satsang. Association with the wise is said to be the turning point for everything. Now, when we practice, does it mean that there will not be times when we sit in practice and we say that, oh, today, I got upset, the mind got disturbed, the pranas got agitated? Yes, undoubtedly, right? But what is the point to do there? Either one can give up and go back to the old ways. And people will doubt your practice also. I'll tell you that. When you practice, people will doubt whether you're practicing. There will be doubts whether, oh, he's doing all this stuff, but I don't see any improvement. He's still the same old guy. Yeah. You have to have what one of my friends called titanium will. Not iron will, titanium will. This titanium will, you cannot shift it. Okay. It's like an arrow that's going straight to the mark. You cannot move that will. Right. With that will, if one practices, ignore all the criticisms of your practice. Take the criticisms of yourself. That's okay. But ignore the criticism of the practice. I don't mind if anybody criticizes this mind, this body. But I know for a fact that any criticism of the message is foolish, and I will disregard it. You can shoot the messenger, but don't try to say something foolish about the message, because that is true. Right? Right. I may be wrong. My interpretation may be wrong, but I know my guru is not wrong. And I know that the Gita is not wrong. Right? So naturally, human interpretation, there can be frailties, foibles, limitations, right? This is possible. Of course it's possible, right? Because the human lens is only one lens, right? It is formed from this experience, arc of this experience. But God has created Sahasra Shirsha, 1,000-fold visions, right? Undoubtedly, each of them has some validity, however small, right? So one person cannot say that they can give the 1,000-fold vision, but Bhagavan can definitely give that, right? So all that I can say is that Shraddha will lead to the goal. There is no doubt about that. So every time we slip, you just say, okay, well, forgive yourself, engage again in the practice, determined, Krita Nishchayaha, and that super tanker does turn. And you will get support. You will get support from unlooked for places. People will support your practice. People will encourage you. People will, and there will be some who may not be convinced. Let that be okay. That's okay. Let that be. And maybe there is a valid criticism there also. Maybe that is just telling us that, okay, this limitation we have to remove. That's all right. Right? Born as a human being in Bhulokam, it is limited perspective. So, but we continue. And as you continue, more and more you will find help. Not the other way around. On the other hand, I've also found that if that slips, then the good people will still support you. But the road becomes rougher and harder, right? But God is gracious, always merciful. Whatever you do, didn't he say even at one point, Papa Tamaha, right, Pranav?
Yes, sir. Not Papi, Papatama.
Right.
The worst one.
Yeah, worse than the worst one.
Right. Right. For that person also, there is a way out, right? No one is condemned, and so I think this practical thing is what I have found very useful. Keeping up the satsang, keeping up the daily practice, and then these words start making sense intuitively also, right? Does that help?
Yeah.
Dr. Shankar, I have a question. I know it's a very stupid question, and I think if I meditate enough, I will be able to reach the answer, but I'm still tempted to ask you.
That's right.
So, you have so immense knowledge of, of the scriptures and everything. Are you still motivated to conduct research and make discoveries and inventions?
Well, it's not a stupid question at all. I think it's a very good question, right? Yes, I am. I mean, what draws me is the students. So my collaborators pull me into research, my students pull me into research, and their sincerity is so sweet that I cannot stop. You know, so I have a collaborator in Michigan. He's hired a postdoc. This postdoc is working so hard and sending me updates that I cannot not read it. You know, that person has put so much sincerity into their work that, and just asking for some input, right? Students are engaged. So, and after all, it's a commitment also, right? So once I take a student, I have to give them all the support. That's the role I have to play, right? And, you know, there is always a joy in exercising the mind for something good, right? There is, but you ask a very good question. There comes a stage in the sadhana at which temporarily it seems like there is no juice in the world outside. There is no interest. Right? It does come, right? But the grace of God is so great that you will be continued. Your past karmas will propel you through that stage till you come to a point where it's okay. You know, you're not, they're not seen as contrary. Right? And so, yeah, so it's great. I still enjoy the research and working with the students and helping them. And like I said, most of the time it's almost like others are pushing me into it. So, you know, if you have students whom you have hired, then you have to write proposals to bring money for them, right? It's not fair to keep them on without funding, right? So then you say, okay, well, let's write something based on past work. Other people invite you, drag you into it. You can't then say, no, I won't, right? And they're also sweet, and their intentions are so wonderful that it goes well.
Dr. Shankar, I think I asked this partly because as I'm getting more and more exposed to our ancient scriptures, I'm finding more and more buried knowledge in them.
Yes.
So, for example, you had sent us the Yoga Vashishta,
Right.
a part of the Yoga Vashishta, and that talks about the atomic theory. It talks about the Parmanu. So I was thinking, so even when there were seers and there were sages, even then inventions and discoveries were happening. The world was not at a standstill. So that's very, I think that's very profound, and that's something that maybe I should meditate upon and find answers. How is that happening? I mean, it all of the knowledge is the true knowledge that the sages had, and they were still inclined to find out more and more about the universe.
Right. And help, right? Because their inclination was always we should help those around us. That sarva bhuta hite rataha, right? It's from there that Ayurveda comes about, right? So wonderful. Was there another question?
No.
Yeah.
Chetas would like to share like one of his experience. Like, is that okay, Shankar?
Of course, surely.
When I was preparing for a science Olympiad, it's a thing in school, and there was tryouts. At first, I was really tensed about whether I would get in or not, and then I thought about the Bhagavad Gita, and then I decided to enjoy the process instead of worrying about if I'll get in or not.
Lovely. How did it work out?
I got in.
See, that's so fantastic. I'm glad you shared that. So I'll share something with you in return. So I used to play a game called squash. It's a very vigorous game. And I used to play with my friends, and then I found out that my research advisor, he also played squash. So we started playing together, right? So I was always very tense and nervous when playing with him. So I could never play my best game, right? So I would always choke. I would have him on the ropes, like almost win the point, but something I would choke at the last minute. So then one day he noticed it and he said, I think you can beat me, but I think you are holding back, right? He said, don't think you're playing with it. Just play like you're playing with any other squash partner, right? So the moment I said, okay, I'm just playing, right? I'm not necessarily playing with my advisor. So I'm just playing. So then it changed. It really, then you're not choking up, right? So sports also is very good to get that idea of, they call it being in the flow. So especially when you're playing ball games, racket games, hand-eye coordination, there's really this sense of flow. Sometimes you're just, every fiber in your body is playing in perfect synchronicity, right? And that's, again, definitely an example of what you're saying, right? When you give up the thinking of what is the goal, but you're just playing in that moment. Thanks for sharing. That's lovely you mastered it so early. It took me till graduate school to figure that out. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's lovely you can attend, Chetas. It's nice to see you come every week.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments? Acha, so probably one thing I think next Monday is Shankar Jayanti, if I remember my calendar reading right. So it's a very, of course, special and wonderful day. So maybe if you get a chance, you can spend some time where is it? 27th, yes. Today is 25th, right? Yeah, coming Monday.
That's
And,
Chetas' birthday also, Shankar.
pardon me?
That's Chetas' birthday, like 27th.
Wonderful. Happy birthday in advance, Chetas.
Thank you.
You share a very special birthday with someone very special. The next day is Ramanuja Jayanti. They always come one after the other. And yeah. And today's specialty is also Akshaya Tritiya, Parashuram Jayanti, and Basav Jayanti. So Akshaya Tritiya, the understanding is that whatever you do on Akshaya Tritiya, you will do repeatedly. So I'm glad we did satsang today. And Parashuram Jayanti, of course, was very special for those of you who have read Tripura Rahasya, because he is the aspirant in that, getting instruction from Dattatreya. Anyway, very nice. I'm glad you could all join. Lovely to see you, Durgesh ji and Shiva, everyone. Mahesh, Susmita, Ameya. And there is someone from iPhone. I can't see who it is. But whoever it is, I'm glad you could join. Acha. So I will say Shanti Mantram and we'll meet again next week. Yeah, next Saturday. Om Tachamyoravruneemahe Gatum Yajnaya Gatum Yajnapataye Daivihi Swastirastu Naham Swastirmanushabhyah Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipadehe Sham Chatushpade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.